What's up, world? We're here for another episode of Dream Chasers, which is a show I created to help people from all walks of life to turn their dreams into reality. We're sponsored by Gig Town, which is this awesome app which helps musicians and fans of music to also achieve their dreams. You can check that out at gig.town/dream chasers. Again, that's gig.town/dream chasers, and get hooked up with the app. Today, I am really excited to have Donald C. Kelly, aka the Sales Evangelist, in the house. What is up, Donald?
Dude, I'm excited to be here with you, Lucas, man. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Well, it's been great. I mean, I've been listening to your podcast probably since I've been listening to podcasts. So it's been a while, and good to connect. And for those of you who don't know, Donald's podcast is focused towards helping sales professionals and entrepreneurs to grow their book of business or grow their businesses for that, Mark. So he's just got so many great insights to share. And Donald, let's start with, how did the Sales Evangelist come to be?
Good question, man. Thanks again for having me. And you guys are doing some good stuff over here, man. I love the idea and the name, man. Chase those dreams, baby, man. You got to go after it and got to hustle. So I like it. And for all the audience, man, if you guys know anybody else out there that need to chase your dreams, recommend them to jump on this podcast. Just get the word out there about it, because we need to grow this community, get the word out there about this good stuff. But for me, man, the Sales Evangelist just started as a hobby. I was a software sales rep, and it was difficult trying to generate business. I had success selling B2C. So, I'm selling business to consumer. When I did door-to-door security, I would knock on doors. I would, do the IT training classes, sell to individuals. When you got to selling to businesses, it was a whole different beast. And Lucas, bro, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was failing horrible at it. And I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to quit. I was determined to find success in the company. They got us some formal sales training. And then it was like, boom, like magic. My eyes opened. I was able to really see that there's a process and what was going on. I just did an episode on this, actually, 297 for my podcast. We talked about having a sales process, having a sales outline, a guide, so to speak. And that's what it was. And I was like, there's so many people out there, bro, who don't know what to do, who don't know how to find success, because I was in that same shoe. And next thing you know, one thing led to another. I started listening to my buddy Jared easily encouraged me to listen to Seth Godin Startup School, listen to that. And then I started listening to Pat Flynn, and I got hooked, and I was like, I got to jump on this thing. And then he encouraged me to start my own podcast, The Sales Evangelist. I did a couple segments on Jared podcast, but it wasn't like exactly the right, co-branding. I wasn't able to truly help his audience so much, so it wasn't making sense. So he had encouraged me to do my own, man, and that was the most important thing to do at that point, and I did. And lo and behold, the podcast took off and started getting a community and a following, and there are a lot of sellers out there who were just like myself. And next thing you know, we're making money. And then last year I left my day job, and now I do this full time. So it's pretty awesome.
That's great, man. So I'm sure a lot of people listening right now. So this process that you talk about for making a sale, can you dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like so our audience can get some takeaways?
Yeah, man. Because one of the things that we do, typically people will say when you're making a sale, they're like, okay, what it looks like is at the end, I have sell my product and I get money for it. That's it. But there's a lot that goes in between that whole area there, from you having a product and getting the sale. So the first thing that many sellers or entrepreneurs, people trying to generate money, what they do is they think, bro, my thing is good for everybody. And that's the problem. Not everybody wants your stuff. Not everyone wants an iPhone. I have friends who are diehard Samsung fan. They're not going to touch an iPhone, even if they had to make an emergency call. They would have me dial it for them. They're like, bro, can you call? I don't want to talk to Siri. So they would probably, and it's the same thing with our business. Sometimes we think, oh, we have this great business or a great podcast or a great book or a great widget or a great, organic leaf tea water. Nobody cares. Not everyone's going to care about it as much as you are, but you have to find there's an ideal market, an ideal individual. And that's the very, very first thing in any sales process, is going after the right people. I can speak from experience where I didn't go after the right people and I ran around chasing ghosts pretty much and trying to find a purple unicorn, and it wasn't there. The key was to make sure you find the ideal customer, the ideal person for your business, and then to go after them. So that's number one. Number two is being able to sell to people according to what they need. Sometimes we might say, well, I'm selling water to people who are thirsty, so I'm going to sell a bunch of water. Well, in actuality, the ideal customer is not thirsty. The ideal customer really just wants to water their plants. You know what I mean? That's what they don't care about thirst. It's just more of, I need that nice bottle of water to water my plants. So then therefore, I need to tailor my message according to that ideal customer. So the second step, after you figure out who they are, you have to figure out their needs or their challenges. And that usually comes through the education that you offer and by the questions you ask. And the more you know about them, the more easier it's for you to ask meaningful questions to guide that process. And then you listen. You got to be able to listen to the prospect because they'll tell you literally how to sell them. One of the biggest mistakes we make sometimes as sellers is that we think, again, I want to treat people the way that I like to be treated, which is not necessarily true of business. You got to treat people the way that they would like to be treated. You know, you may like pistachio ice cream. I hate pistachio ice cream. So why would I give you, vanilla ice cream if you love pistachio? You know what I mean? You give people what they want, and then that's one of the next thing. And then the third step is, now that you recognize there's a challenge and that you can solve it and there's a need, you need to make sure that they have the money. And that's where sometimes people as sellers or entrepreneurs, we get afraid of asking for money. We're thinking if we're asking for money, it feels like we're being dishonest in some way. And it's like, that's not how it is, man. You got to be upfront with people. You got to be able to let them know. They know at some point, if they're going to make a purchase, that there's going to be some kind of money exchange. We're the ones that are awkward talking about money. Don't be afraid of talking about money, but you want to find out if they have the budget and can they afford you. And once you get that, then you want to demonstrate or propose how you can solve their challenge and express that value. Bring up some of the challenges that they have that they talk to you about first. Watering your plants, express to them how your water can help them water their plants even better. And then you can, after you get that, you get the commitment. And once you get that commitment, you can typically close. The hardest part of closing a deal is doing it upfront. The close is upfront. When you find out the true challenge and the true need, by the time you get to the end, it's so easy. All you have to say is, what would you like to do next? And if you've done your work, by the time you get to that point, they're going to be like, okay, when can we get started? And that's what you want to hear. That's a beautiful thing. So that's a quick overview, but essentially it's give you a good skeleton of what everyone needs to do in order in a sales process. When you start skipping, the problem we get to when people start skipping steps, when they start saying, I know what the main challenge is, without really discovering and chatting with the client. Or they might say, well, I know they have the money already, so I'm going to skip over talking about money. Dude, you're toast in the water. You got to make sure you go over every step. You never see a basketball player that's skip over fundamentals and they're great. All of the greats are really, really hardcore in their fundamentals and their shooting and their dribbling and so forth. So it's important for us as sellers to be totally dedicated to the fundamentals and implement them and practice them. Make sense?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's awesome for people. And so much of sales is a mind game, right? Because you have to deal with what's going on in your mind. Because as a salesperson, I mean, unless you're just so used to selling like us, you're kind of concerned about like saying the right thing, not dealing with no, and making that sale. Because ultimately, those are you want all these things to happen. So I mean, I'm sure these thoughts still go through your head when you're talking to a customer. Oh, yeah. So how do you kind of keep yourself in check and in the moment with people?
I think you just give the answer that one of the keys is to keep yourself in the moment. Like if I'm focused on chatting with you at this time, there's a couple things that I would do. One, I want to do my research to figure out who am I going to talk to and what some of the things that I can bring up, I can learn about them before I even get on a call or before I go into the meeting. So that's one of the things. But then two, the more prepared you are, the better you are, the more confident you are, and the better you are to be able to offer value. If I'm worried about what I'm going to do next, I'm not focused on you and being in a moment and offering value. I have to realize that if I can come prepared, and that's where you master the fundamentals. And some of it too, like you said, it's mind games, it's head, a lot of it is in your head. If you are truly confident in what you have to offer, then you're going to not have that, I guess, have those awkward conversations. If you're truly confident in yourself and confident in what you have to offer, it's going to be in the present, in the moment, focus and chat. So what I like to do is to get as confident as possible, whether that's to recognize who I am, that I'm Donald freaking Kelly, or that I can offer value. Looking at my product, looking at the clients I've helped, the ideal customers, and see how happy they are. Read some of my reviews from folks. Those things get me to realize, yes, I can do this. I can freaking solve your problems for you. I can help you. And then that helps me now when I go in there confidently, not cocky, but confident. There's a borderline there though. But you have to be, you have to be that confident individual to express to them that you can solve their challenge. And usually when I'm most confident, it makes me focus in the moment, and I'm able to truly help the client and not have to worry about what I'm going to say next or some of those issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's so great. It's like a basketball player with their free throw routine, before they have the routine. And I think a lot of salespeople and anyone in general who has to sell themselves, like, don't have that routine. So you have to engineer that, like whether it's, being prepared or listening to music, kind of like get yourself in that zone. Because I found for me personally, like when I don't do that stuff, I'm not on my game as much because my mind is scattered. Like that's kind of my mind signal of like, okay, I'm ready to go. And everyone's kind of got a different way of getting into things. So I think that's like a great action for people to take. It's like kind of like figure out like what your pre-routine would be before you get on a sales call or go into a big meeting with your boss. And I wanted to speak more on like the no portion of the meeting and asking for the money. Like it's normal to get butterflies, like when you're asking for money, and like normal to like get scared of no, like everyone get that. I mean, I was listening to an interview with Grant Cardone the other day, who's like multimillionaire, like stud sales guy. He was talking about how he still gets the jitters when he is making sales to people like that. Just, and there's this just whack portrayal of like, you should be completely confident, like everything is going to work out. Like that just part of it, you until you get that yes, there's all. And I think that's part of the great part about sales and like why people get weeded out is because you have to be able to deal with that, be able to get that that business from someone.
It is true. You're gonna have that. I mean, if you don't, then you're a robot. But the key is to manage manage your feelings, manage those emotions. Like Grant, he still can get those butterflies, but Grant in a situation, bro, he's probably close to billions of dollars, pretty darn close, probably over the years of all the stuff that he sold and all those freaking real estate properties he has. He's probably closed, handled more money than we probably can handle in a lifetime. But it's still yet though, it's just a human nature. Like you said, you still have those jitters. But the more confident you are, it's any basketball player. I ran track, and every time I got on a track, even though I knew sometimes I can beat the people I'm running against, I still had my nerve. But it's a lot better than when I first started running because I knew what I needed to do to perform effectively in that race. Or if it's a speaking competition, or if it's like football, like I know when I'm going to, when I play flag football, I know I'm going to get a touchdown. Like I just know it, or I know I can read the play, I can get that pick, I know it, but still yet I'm nervous. Like, it's still a worry. What if I do miss? But if I focus on the what if I misses, then I am going to miss. I try to keep my mind focused on, the what if I do make it? Can I do it? And can I make that success? And the other thing, like you mentioned too, bro, I love YouTube. I listen to YouTube videos, some of those motivational videos all the time, man. I get my pumped up going. Some of my wife probably like, oh my goodness, some of those things are so cheesy. I'm like, listen, it's in the mode, man. You got to get in the zone. So
yeah.
But I love listening to those motivational stuff, and like listening to music get me pumped up too, man. Music is a huge proponent for a lot of us to get psyched, so to speak, or get our head into the right zone. You have to have your head in the right place, and your mindset has to be focused and dedicated. Doesn't matter what you're doing, sales or basket weaving, you gotta have that clear mindset as you're doing it.
Well, yeah, and you got to manage your feelings too, like, and that like you said, I mean, that's a really hard thing to do, because when that like runaway train gets going with your negative feelings, like,
bro, I'm gonna mess up on this deal. I can't get it. I'm late already.
Yeah. Yeah, so you almost have to kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself with your feelings. And one of the ways that I do this is I like write out how I'm feeling. If I'm starting to feel bad, I start to write it out, or I try to call someone, because like for me, like that's how I manage my feelings. And I think it'll be interesting to get your perspective, but like that's another thing the audience can take away is like start to understand, if you're already, like how to manage when you get angry, like how to manage when you're sad, because if you don't, like your emotions will manage you. It's like one of the, you manage your emotions or they manage you.
Yeah, there's one. I mean, from being like my background, one of the things I do is I'm a spiritual person, so prayer is a big part that helped me a lot with that. The other thing that I would say that helps me to manage and keep myself focused, my wife will tell me, "Bro, you need to go run." You know what I mean? Like sometimes you get stressed out, stuff get crazy, but there's something that happens of power when you start running, man. You just like your body just kind of takes over, and things just get clear. You can run out some of the stress, and your mind get clear and alert. And I'm sure someone with a medical background is going to listen to this and like, bro, it's this some proper term for it. But what I know is that when I run, I just feel like I get the energy, get those endorphins going, and I just feel more clear. I can think more clearly, and I can perform better in my role. So that's one thing that helps me, is when I get wound up or get those challenges or have those difficulties, is to clear my mind, man. Get out there and go hustle, run for a little bit. Or the other thing that I like to do too, man, is I love your idea there of writing that down. I need to do that more. I have my journal somewhere around here, but here's one of them. But it's a little like an old school book. But you're writing down some of those thoughts, man, that helps a lot. I like to do that in the morning as part of my morning routine, as I'm write down some things, because that helps to get my mind going and keep my mind clear. So those are some of the things that I would recommend too, man.
For sure. Well, you were talking about hustle. So like, let's talk about your transition from working in corporate America to jumping off full time. Like walk us through that, and when you finally knew like it was time to go.
All right. So this started way before I even knew exactly what I was going to do. Right. Because so in college, I said I was going to work for some time, X amount of years. And then after that, I was going to then go for an MBA, try to get to one of the Ivy League schools, looking at some of those top schools, or then to start to do a startup. And the TSE became that startup, and I kind of shared how that started. It was just while I was working in sales, I just started developing. I started to make money. So I was like, okay, this could be viable. This can happen. So it was right around the right time that in April of 2015, whenever people listen to this, but April 2015 is when I would have hit the mark that was prescribed. We meaning myself, and I talked to my wife about it, and so we had set that date. And then what we wanted to do during that time, once we started to see TSC was generating income for us, we wanted to bring down our expenses. The beautiful thing about sales is that you can pay off stuff once you make some commission, you know what I mean? So we had commission. So we had savings account, which was like, really high than what we've ever had before in our lives. It was awesome with sales. And then we got married, and we didn't have any debt from the marriage. Able to pay that off. And then we were able to pay off cars. So we brought expenses down to low. We were running, comfortable. Like our life was, we're living just the same, our same things. We did our traveling and stuff like that, but we just made sure we were cautious of how we were spending our money and how we were using money wisely. So my wife is working. She works in the commercial real estate industry. She does in the office type work. She doesn't like to do sales, but she's married to a salesman. Figure it out. But so she was doing that stuff. And what we started to do, again, we just started to make the plans when we were going to hop ship once we see TSC is bringing in a certain amount of money. And when TSC started bringing a certain amount of money consistently, we wanted to keep going. However, we got pushed out quicker. And I'll explain that. The house always win when it comes to corporate. The corporate company is the house, and they always win. So I'm working on this deal, man. It's a huge deal. It's going to be like some pretty good commission, bro. And then the way the house stacked the chips, they set up the change of contract, my company, and they were I was going to get that commission over like 3-4 years if I stayed there waiting for that. And I was just like, I can't sit around fighting for pennies when I can go make dollars. So April came and because we were waiting, and then it came to July and we're still a little scared. We're like, can we do this? A little nervousness, right? So July came around and I ran out of vacation days, dude. I didn't have any vacation days, and we were going on a trip with John Lee Dumas in the fall with the podcast guys to go do the Podcast Paradise Cruise, a podcast movement. I was speaking in California on the mini speaking tour. So I had all this stuff, and I was like, we got to just jump ship. So I literally went into my boss's office. I think I recorded that conversation to on my phone, and I just resigned. And it was like one of the hardest things, even though I was planning on it all the way up to this time. But it was one of the most liberating things too, man, because it felt so free. And even though I can get up and I can work 14-hour, 15-hour days right now, it doesn't seem like work because I just love it. It's like my hobby. It's my fun. You know what I mean? And so that was like that was a big lead up to it. We prepared, but it was still nerve wracking. And I don't care what anyone says. I remember walking out of that meeting and still having like the jitters. Like I just quit. I just quit my job. I said, forget it. I'm done. It wasn't like that. I went out. I didn't burn bridges because I know it's important. You don't burn bridges. Even though I was kind of frustrated with a lot of things that were going on in the company, I even, just was cool and just went and did my thing and talked to them. And I gave them my 2 weeks, and they had allowed me to come finish up that week and gave me the other week off. So it was great to, start doing my own thing. And, but the thing though, you have to prepare. I don't care what anyone says. We see some people do stuff and we're like, oh man, they just did that. And all of a sudden they're making money and all this great things are happening. Anyone great has always prepared beforehand. Whether it's in athletics or it's in business or sales or whatever, those people have some work behind the scenes that we don't see. And that was behind the scene for us. And that's what helped us to be able to make that decision and to be able to jump when we did jump. So makes sense there with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are like scooting closer to that cliff as we speak. And then they're wondering, so like when you say like preparation, like what do you need to specifically have to jump, in your opinion?
I think you have to make sure you have money. Either that's money in savings or you're going to have money generating money somehow. Mm-hmm. So when people say, I want to leave my job, maybe your expenses for the month, it's $3,000. I'm just throwing something out there, single person, whatever. You're spending $3,000 a month, all your expenses. Then what can you do to start breaking it up to get to quarters? You may say, well, I want to be able to come up with $500 on a side. My side hustle needs to be generating $500 by this date. Then by this date, I need to start generating $1,000 on the side. And then this date, I need to get to 15. And then I need to get to $2,000. Then I get to 2,500. If I'm making $3,000 and you're like, okay, I'm doing this consistently, making $3,000, that's a good point. If you can make a little bit more, that's awesome as well. But if you can get to that point where you're generating some money on the side and your side income is increasing, that's one of the things that was huge for us, was preparing and setting those goals, setting like benchmarks. And then one of the ways is, if $3,000 is expenses, like, is $3,000 really, do you really need to spend $3,000 per month? Maybe it's like, well, I'm spending $200 a month on Starbucks. Well, then start, whatever you want to do. So whatever you need to do, recognizing this is not forever. This is just for a small section of your life where you need to start your hustle. You need to scale back your lifestyle, if that's the key, so you can create that lifestyle that you really, really want. So that was a huge thing for us, to make sure we did that. We ate out a lot, like to eat out a lot. And we still did eat out, but we wanted to make sure that it was healthier when we didn't have to eat out so much anyways. But you just scale back on those expenses, recognizing again that it's a small window. I need to get this point of my life to the point where I can escape. So that financial preparation is probably one of the biggest things that people overlook. And then they get out there. The other thing that you really need to look at too is there something that you really want to do? I mean, it's a mental thing. Going back to that, man. People might say, well, dude, I want to get out there, I want to do my own thing. But can you really handle some of that stress? You're going to be taking care of everything right now, right? You're going to take care of the finances and the back end of the business. You're going to take care of the operations. You're going to take care of, the sales. So you really need to understand that. So before you even jump, get some of those things and those affairs in order. Think about that. Think about the processes. A lot of people end up working on their business as opposed to like working in their business. They're spending so much time like trying to do all the technical jargon and things like that they didn't think about before. But create some processes. Like, how am I going to do my budgeting? How am I going to do, find new clients? When am I going to find new clients? You got to put those times in there. My website, there are things I need to do for my website, but you create those processes. And I just looked at a regular corporate company, and I try to break up my company into that, like marketing, sales, finance, even HR, because I have my virtual assistants that help out. So how am I going to teach them and create some of those processes beforehand? So those are some of the things that I did in particular to help us to get to the point. And I got help with the virtual assistant. They helped me to be able to do some of the things that I wasn't too great at, like sitting down and doing all of my show notes and all of the editing. I didn't have time for it, so they can do it. So anyways, those are some of the things that I would say: the mental, the financial, and the operation side of the business.
Okay, those are great. And then when it comes to the virtual assistants, break down what you wish you would have known when you started with your virtual assistants.
Bro, I wish I was even clearer on what I wanted to get done, because it took me like almost like 6 months to a year to then start realizing that I'll put it like this. To produce a podcast episode, I outlined it on like a sheet of like a PowerPoint or whatever, what it took, every step. You know what I mean? And it was like whatever for our production, it was like X amount of steps. And I color coded it. The stuff that I was doing, the stuff that my virtual assistant was doing, the stuff that maybe my wife assists with. And say my color was blue. And say there were 7 steps. Like 5 of them was a blue. Like, why in the world are 5 of the steps blue? Do I really need to do all of those things? The only one I really should be doing, Lucas, is just recording this. That should be only one. And everything else should be, somebody else should be able to do that. So that's what I started. That's one of the mistakes I didn't do at the beginning. I was kind of hoarding, and I wasn't giving the virtual assistants like stuff that they should be doing and empowering them and outlining specifically, like, somebody taught me, gave me this thing. It's called, I think it's ScreenFlow-O-Matic. And with that tool, it's apparently free for like the first 5 minutes you can record, but you can record your screen flows for free, like, instructions. And now you can give your virtual assistant like video of this is how to create a show notes, or how I like it, or how I want my, the graphics to look, or whatever. But I didn't do that at first. And that was one of the biggest issues. I didn't delegate properly. And I didn't delegate. And so all those blues visually, I'm a visual person. So I was like, I need to get those blue down. So little by little came to the point where I only just needed to really do my part, which is to record.
Well, it's hard to delegate, right? Like,
oh, bro, they're not going to do it right. They're not going to do it right, man. Dang.
Like, until you actually like get a virtual assistant or something like that, you're like, I'd never be like that. Like, it'd be really easy to give up my work. But when you put so much of your time into something, like, it just is so much different, because you're just like, you want to do everything yourself, because I think you kind of like a certain level of arrogance you build up, or so, that like you just want to do everything, and then that's like idiotic, because you really can't.
Yeah. It is, dude. It's so true, man. It made a huge difference in not only the business, but just in everything, man. I was spending like hours. Like, say if I got my 8 hours throughout the day to get stuff done, and which is never 8-hour days, like more like 15. But if it was 8 hours, then you would say, bro, like, why am I spending like half my day, 4 hours doing editing and doing stuff on podcasts, when I could be talking to potential customers?
Yeah. Like,
something that I can outsource for like $50 a week altogether, then I can get a client that's going to pay me $300 an hour. So it's like, well, no brainer, bro. I just gave up all this time. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, so get cleared. I think that's a great segue to the next part of our discussion, because we were talking about how you're looking to scale your business to the next level and kind of the opportunity that you have there. So share a little bit more about where you're at with the folks out there right now so they can resonate with like what's next for you.
Yeah, man. So TSC, so one of the main areas that people started to ask us, what we can help with was coaching. Can you do some one-on-one coaching? So that's when I started generating income there. That was the very first area. And then from that, I went into, got some speaking opportunities. And then I had people ask about the sales training side, and it wasn't huge because it means it's really easier for like the coaching. But then I started to push it even more for me to train organizations. And that's where a challenge came now, like how do I get the business to another level? So we started doing that this year, and we started to see some success with it, but we just need to focus on it. But the goal is to get where we're doing the sales training. Like I go and sales train a small organization as opposed to the one-on-one. Like sales train their sales force, and that's been pretty cool. We were doing some of that virtually as well. So the interesting thing though, I took a business class and a lot of business classes, but one of them was specifically an entrepreneur class, a startup class. And one of the key things they spoke about in that class, Lucas, was the idea of scalability and then how the business can grow. Eventually, that business model that I have will tap out because I'm exchanging time for dollars. So the key now is there's a couple things that you can do to make that happen even further, is to create products. So that's one of the things we're doing this year. Later in the year, we have a course, a course. So the sales one-on-one for all those new guys selling or people who want to learn the fundamentals, it's going to give you everything you need to do so you can perform like the top people. So that's going to be cool. That'll be a product so that I can sell, and it's over and over again. We started also doing TSC Hustlers League, which is a group sales training course. So every Wednesday evening, Eastern Standard Time at 7:30, I get on a get on a line with my fellow hustlers, people who want to improve their sales. They probably just can't do the one-on-one coaching, but they come into a group training method, and every Wednesday night they get a training session from me. And like even this Wednesday night, we're bringing on an expert guest. So once a month, we bring on an expert guest to help us and to share. And with all these episodes, it's awesome. I can bring one of those people on. And then the other area now, so not only do you have the products and you do the one-to-many, the key now is then multiply myself. So with TSC, one of our goals is to look towards a licensing model. So in the next 5 years, based on the sales system that we're creating, that we have in TSC, our goal is then to have certified sales evangelist trainers. If you look at some of the folks like John Maxwell and some of these guys, they have these, certified Maxwell Institute person. But if you are with the sales evangelist, similar thing, I can then multiply myself. So if I get multiple speaking opportunity or training opportunity, then I don't have to do all of those, but I might have, David, who's in Kansas, who could take care of something in the Midwest. He gets a percentage share of the deal. Like we have, say whatever, if it's at 60, 70%, whatever, he gets his 60 and TSC gets 40. I'm just throwing something out there, but that's kind of like the thing we talked about too, is how we can scale the business further and multiply myself. And then in the future, in that next 5 years, then TSC doesn't necessarily have to revolve around Donald. The business can run itself essentially. And I can focus, because I love tech, so I want to do tech startups and get in that avenue as well.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And when you're talking about scalability, a light bulb went off in my head, because I think you have to also think about scalability for your career as well. Like if you're working for someone else, it's like the same thing. Because if you're not thinking like 2 or 3 steps ahead about where you're going with your career and like where you're going to be getting the most money for your time, then you're going to just get cut off in mediocrity, not making as much as you should be. So I think that, it comes back to just like a business owner, because when you're in a career, you own your business and you own your career. You have to take that time like you are a business owner and think about like 3 to 5 years from now, like what's the vision? How do I scale my career to the next level? Like, do I think about, does my company need to bring someone on to support me? Does management need to get me some more training? Like you have to think like that. A lot of people are kind of scared to think like that but companies will be so appreciative of that because you're coming with the initiative of like, because if you can scale your role, you're likely going to be bringing more revenue to your business anyways. So, that's something to think about. And you're the owner of your brand. So think about like as an individual, how do I scale my career and how do I scale my business as well? Because they're one and the same. Like it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, so true on that, man. I didn't think about that like with the business side, like a employee. And I think like you're right, probably 90, I would say, I'm throwing numbers out there, but they said like 50% of statistics are made up. So, but I was there you go, just made one up there. But like, so many people, I would say a large number of people out there don't think about their career in that sense. They're like, I go to work, I get my paycheck and I go home. They're not thinking about, I need to scale, I need to improve, I need to get myself better, I just need to keep the status quo going. Getting this X amount of dollars in my check every month, that direct deposit, I'm not gonna mess up the water. Just keep doing my thing until I can retire. But that's not the way to think about it, man. You gotta make sure you enjoy it and live life. I don't wanna go sit in a box every day and go nowhere. You know what I mean?
Well, at least go somewhere if you're gonna go sit in that box, right?
Shoot, man.
And I mean, corporate America is a bit of a game. I mean, everyone knows that, and you have to learn how to play the game. And I think part of that is like getting outside your box and like understanding what is going on. Because if you see your company is moving in a certain direction, it's like smart to talk to management and like try to understand where the company is going. Because if you can start to think about like, okay, this is where I think the company is going, then you can kind of forecast like how things are going to start to play out. So you're not just sitting there kind of wondering what's happening, and you kind of start to take back that responsibility of it being like your life. Because that's one of the toughest parts about being in an environment like that is you kind of just stop really having control because you think someone else has it. But if you look around, and this is a lot like having a business as well, where you pay attention to what's going on in the space and you notice the trends and you take that back with you. And you start to think about, okay, how can I play this to my advantage, right? Because based on where I want to take my career or my business, how can I apply this?
Oh, dude, that is so true, man. It's such a key thing there, man. And I just think again, go back to it. I think so many people just don't think that way. It just doesn't resonate with them to focus like that. But I wish I did earlier.
Yeah, no,
it helped, man. It helps so much.
For sure. Well, I think, those are some great points for the people to take away. And, speaking of things that you wish you knew beforehand, what, would you say that now, whether it be in your business life, whatever, that you tell yourself kind of starting then?
Oh, dude, I would say it would be to get uncomfortable sooner. The people say you don't grow within your comfort zone, right? That statement. I think we can all agree on that. You're not going to grow within your comfort zone. Going back to some of those folks who don't scale their careers, they just stay and just do their own thing, and they stay comfortable. They don't want to get awkward or get in a tough situation. But when you get in those tough situations, those uncomfortable situations, that's when usually you grow. It causes you to stretch and to push yourself and to do bigger things. And one of the things I wish I had done earlier was I wasn't uncomfortable enough in my sales career or in my business or just like life. I liked, no matter how much I wanted to do things different, I had my little plan, I was still very comfortable with my job. I was still very comfortable getting that, paycheck, that consistent paycheck, my base salary, my commission. I was I was comfortable with that. But once you start getting uncomfortable, put yourself in those tough situations and you put yourself in those challenging situations, you start work magic. You start developing quote unquote muscles that you didn't think or knew you had, or gain strength in areas that you didn't know that were strengths for you. And for us, that's one thing that we've done, and that's one thing we're doing now. Like one of the things it was challenge for me, Lucas, and we're working on it, is we're working on the Do Big Thing conference. We want to do a conference later in Florida, this year in Florida, 2-day conference in West Palm Beach here. And will be our first time Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, you're trying to find a venue, you're trying to get this thing going, you want to get a keynote speaker, you want to get like fun, money. It's uncomfortable. It's not a part of my comfort zone. It's outside, but it's something that's going to stretch me and help me to get even bigger and stronger. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the gifts that entrepreneurship has given me for sure. Is like, because you have to be constantly uncomfortable, and I think we're taught as a society and employees to kind of be comfortable, right? Like that's just kind of how most of society operates. But not like as entrepreneurs, you can't. Like you're always operating outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only, like, working on a Sunday from like 7 to 6 is like insane for most people, but that's entrepreneurship. And that's, why I think you have to always reinforce getting out of your comfort zone, because we all want to be comfortable. Like it's just normal, like want to take the easy way out, and to, constantly be striving to get outside of that comfort zone and holding yourself accountable to that are huge. So I think that's awesome points.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that's helped me. Even like, and I think some people, you just start out incrementally. If your comfort zone is here, maybe just start going out here. And then the more you do it, the better off you are. If the US wasn't comfortable with getting out their comfort zone, maybe the United States will still just be those 13 original colonies, but they kept pushing the further and further west. It's a whole nother part of history, but they got outside of their comfort zone. And, same thing with mankind. If we had all, throughout history, it just stayed within our comfort zone, maybe we'll all just be that one tribe in wherever. But we've expanded, we've broken off, we got into other areas and communities and other countries and other villages. So it's pretty cool. And it's a powerful thing. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, certainly. And like for the salesperson, for example, you instead of making 10 cold calls in a day, you make 20. Or like, running, you run 7 miles instead of 5. It's just like, breaking that down to a place where you can really measurement, because measurement is ultimately what's going to start to push you further. Because once you're like, oh, that 20 calls, like I actually sold someone, then you're going to want to make 40. And that's where the momentum starts to happen.
Oh yeah, dude. Definitely, I did that. And going back to what you said about measurement too. Measurement is a key thing, especially with when I did sales. I started to track my own performance. I started to track, how am I doing on this, on cold calling, or if I made 20 cold calls today, tomorrow I need to make X. About referrals, or about the setting appointments. I need to set more appointments. What can I do to set more appointments? How can I fine tune my appointment setting skills? And I knew that if I kept tracking those key performance indicators or KPIs or key indicators, if I keep tracking those, then I will be able to see and improve. I will see results in the end. And it did work, and it always works whenever you track.
Yeah, well, and I think it's not just salespeople who have KPIs. I mean, everyone has KPIs. You just have to sit down, like determine what are those KPIs for your life, and basically plot like how you're going to make those better.
For sure, dude. Totally true.
So, wrap things up. Where can the people find Donald Kelly?
Well, dude, I actually have something for you guys. There's a video training that I did on generating more referrals. And it's simply put, I guarantee that if people do what I share with them, they can double the amount of referrals that they're getting. If you're getting 2 referrals today, this month, I guarantee you can get 4. And I did a 45-minute training on it. And it's like broken up into 3 or 4 video. And they can get access to that by going to the salesevangelist.com/dream chaser. I'll make it simple so you guys can get access to it. The salesevangelist.com/dream chasers. And they can get access to that.
Yeah. And there will be links on our site, which is schoolofdreams.co, when I post about our interview with Donald, and we'll link the Hustlers League in there for everyone who's wanted to jump in there, as well as the podcast. You guys are going to want to go back and listen to this interview at least like 4 or 5 times, because there are just so many hidden gems for everyone to take away. Donald, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Dude, it's been an honor, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. It was great.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Dream Chaser Nation, been a pleasure as always. And until next time, keep chasing your dreams.
Boom.
Boom.